जिंदा रहे, जिंदा रहे, जिंदा रहे। आए आज़ादारे हुसैनी ये चलन जिंदा रहे, जिंदा रहे, जिंदा।
Most of the choices that we make in everyday life, we think that they are based on well-made decisions, on well-based calculations, but we are wrong. They are all based on habits. Habits formed without us even realizing. Even though each one of them means very little on its own, but when they come together, the habits that you have formed every day of your life, they come together and they play an enormous impact on your life. They make life-changing particles of your life without you even realizing. You think that you have made a very great decision, but this is actually part of your habits that you have made in your life. People through the centuries, from the day man started walking on this planet, that they have thought they knew what habits were. But truly, in all honesty, scholars and people did not understand what habits were until the last 2 decades. Until the last 2 decades that psychologists, sociologists, and neurologists started to understand how habits work, how they are created, and how they can be changed. Because habits play a very important part of our life. First, we must understand what creates a habit, how it can be changed, and how it can affect a person's life, an organization's life, and the life of society, and the life of a ummah. And how we can change our lives and the lives of our community. What is a habit? How is a habit formed? A habit is a cue, and then a routine, and then a reward. So for example, how is this formed? How does a person start to smoke, or start to drink, or start to overeat, or even become an athletic person? After a smoker, for example, a person who starts smoking, he's out and about with his friends. He is probably a casual smoker. He smokes once in a while, but a cue occurs. He is stressed. One of his friends gives him a cigarette. He smokes. Nicotine rushes through his veins. And the result and the joy that he gets from it, he is relaxed and he is no longer stressed. That day finishes. 2 weeks later, he's also stressed. The same cue pops up. He goes through the same routine. He goes and buys cigarettes to receive the same reward. And then that's how routines are made into joy and a habit is formed. This is not only with smokers. This is with people who overeat. This is for people who overtrain and overwork. This is for people who are alcoholics, drug addicts. Everything that you might think is not a habit, but it is. You don't think that this is a well-made decision that I'm biting my nails, or that I scratch myself or pull my beard and rip hairs from my skin. No, this is all based on habits. This is all based on habits. Not exclusive or limited to smoking cigarettes or anything, because every time you make an action, it is stored inside your brain. And every time you do something, it's stored in the basal ganglia. It's stored in your brain, and it does not move. And every time the cue appears, you go through the same routine, and so you could receive the same reward. It's not hard to find an analog of what we are describing in everyday life. For example, you're coming home from a long day of work. Your kids are hungry, you're driving the car, you pass by a McDonald's. Yes, McDonald's, their food is amazing. It's probably very fattening. The salty sugar, the salty potatoes and the oily potato chips, the hamburger, the sugary soda. You probably think to yourself that right now my kids are whining, I am tired, this is a once a month occasion, and it won't harm me. But things change. Habits are formed. You do it once. This is how I got rid of my children's hunger. It didn't harm us. Using processed meat and something that has been given so many ingredients in it and preservatives in it, so it stays protected in the refrigerators for a long period of time. It's not going to harm me. It's once a month. It's a month thing that occurs in our life. But that is exactly what we say before we go into any habit. Before we form any habit, this is what we say to ourselves. That this is a once a lifetime thing. And then that once in a lifetime or once a year becomes a once a semester. Then it becomes a once a month. Then it becomes a once every weekend. Then it becomes once every time after I'm done with work. Then you have created a habit for your everyday life. Isn't this how it works? You think to yourself that I'm not going to do this drug only if I am at a big party. I'm not going to drink unless it's a wedding or some happy occasion. And then it happens to occur that 2 weddings happen in that same month. Or 3 weddings. And then you start to make it a daily thing. Habits occur even when we think to ourselves, this isn't going to harm me. This is once in a month thing, once in a semester thing, but actually narrows and narrows and narrows because your brain is trying to look for the reward. And your brain searches and searches, it goes through the same queue and it goes through the same routine to receive the reward. So what is the golden rule of habits change? It's a very simple equation. Very simple equation. Whenever you receive the cue, you change the routine and you will get the same reward. For example, a person who smokes, instead of smoking, chew nicotine gum. You chew nicotine gum, you are feeling nicotine, you chew gum, the same reward is given to your body. You put a nicotine patch, you still receive the same reward. A person who is addicted to, for example, games. Every time he plays a video game, he's given this joy, a reward. Instead of playing, carry a book. Push yourself. Sometimes changing habits might be very easy. It takes 2 to 3 days. Sometimes it will take months. But your body will automatically receive the same joy. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The habits of successful organizations. We have noticed now how habits are formed in our lives. It's based on a cue, and then it's based on a routine, and then you receive your reward. That's how it impacts our life. That's how it changes our life. You might think to yourself, this is not going to change my life in any way, but when they come together in everyday life, it's impacting you. You see yourself not progressing, not succeeding, not excelling. This is in our personal lives. How about organizations? How can habits change? Make a successful organization. Take a company that's making $100,000 a year to $1 million a year. We take a look at this person's life. The new CEO of Alcoa Company at 1987. This man is a very progressive man. Alcoa, at that moment, was making $5 billion. He comes to this company, the press relief is given out, we have a new CEO. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of new investors and investors that have already placed their money so this company can hold $5 billion. They're coming to see who's going to move our wealth, who's gonna make our assets grow. So they come, they see that this man, Paul O'Neill, he's sitting on the podium. They tell him, tell us, what are your new plans to make our company successful so there isn't much damage done to our wealth? with all honesty, he tells them, I will only change the habits between this company. Now these investors are thinking this man is the craziest lunatic, loony man we have ever seen. What were the investors of Alcoa Steel Company thinking? They asked, question him again. Honestly, in all honesty, what will you do? He says, I will bring new habits to the employees, to the executives, and to the managers. I will change the life of every single employee. How? I will just bring safety. I will make a safe environment for my company, for this new company that I have checked off upon and signed upon a contract. How will you do that? How is Alcoa losing money? That's what Paul O'Neill realized. That Alcoa could reach its horizons if it gives a safe environment to its employees. A steel company, an aluminum company, is a dangerous and hazardous place to work in. People were getting injured daily. Over 300 companies all around the world. You have dozens and dozens, if not close to hundreds of injuries every week. And that means some machines went out of order because the person who works the machine is no longer working until he heals. So that means lower production rates and lower benefits. So Paul O'Neill comes and he says, the only thing that I will change in this company is habits. I will change the habits of the workers in this company. Of course, at that moment, 80% of the investors, they leave the hall and they call the other investors, and 80% of them leave this company, thinking that Paul O'Neill is a crazy man. But he had seen the signs of success before he even started to approach the company. He comes and he says to the employees that from now on, you go on these guidelines. When an injury happens, these employees have to come to the floor manager. The floor manager declares it to the executive. The executives call me within 24 hours and tell me what has occurred, or you will get fired. Both the employees who did not inform the executive and the floor manager, you're all gone. But whoever comes and informs is given a valuation. He's given extra money. So it caused that every time an error occurred, Paul would come himself, O'Neill would come himself and see how he can make this procedure more safe. He'd bring people who'd analyze this machine to see how they can make it more safe. And now the employees are much happier because they are not injured. And it came to a fact that Alcoa Steel Company became the most safe organization on the whole planet. Working at Starbucks or McDonald's was more dangerous than working at a steel company because of the right habit changes. And of course, by the time Paul O'Neill left this company, from 5 billion, he times it by 5, 25 billion annual dollars. Just because he changed simple habits within these organizations. Also, you see this man, very amazing man, smart man, he knew how to progress. He works in the government. He sees staggering high numbers of infant death rates in the United States of America before the age 1. He takes it as his civil duty to change these numbers. He sits and he studies what are the reasons behind these losses of infants. He sees that the main reason behind every report and death of every child is malnutrition mothers. So what should I do? What is the keystone habit that needs to be changed? Eating better in society. So even if there were cities that did not have nutrition classes in their middle schools or high schools and taught young girls or boys to eat properly, he went to the educational board and he told them that you have to teach every student that comes to your college or your university to become a teacher, you have to teach them nutrition. So now, after 4 years, These new teachers have went to these schools, and every single student, every young man and woman has been taught how to eat properly and to well nutrition themselves. And of course, 70% decrease in infant rate in the United States after what Paul O'Neill made. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yes, we see perfection in some organizations. Some organizations, some companies can change people's lives by the way they have structured habits during work. It can change people's lives. Two of the executives that work for Paul O'Neill, they mentioned that Paul O'Neill not only changed our life in our work atmosphere, but even when we were outside, even when we were home, we became habit freaks. We were changing everything to progress, to become successful. When we saw people that they were using the wrong habits, unsafe habits in other atmospheres, we would go stop. I'd park the car and tell them, what you're doing is wrong. Change your habits so you do not hurt yourselves. So some organizations, they can perfect a person's skills. They can come and bring a person who lacks every single skill that you think of. They can make him a successful man. For example, a young man who his parents died of heroin overdose. Both of his parents at the age of 11. This young man, every single place that he is employed, he is fired after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because of his anger issues. Because he did not know how to deal with people. Everyone knew him as the son of the people who died from heroin overdose. This person lacks every single skill. His parents never taught him. They never showed him a good upbringing. But a successful organization teaches him the right habits. Within time, when he enters this new organization, Travis Leach becomes a branch owner of 5 different stores and makes, within 2 years, because he has 4 new habits, over $100,000 a year. Why? Because this company taught him how to interact with customers, taught him how to protect himself, to change his habits to make him a successful person. And this, we see how habits can impact our life enormously, how they can change organizations, how they could, even organizations, when proper habits are installed, they could change people's lives in better society, make a more successful society. A simple franchise. A simple franchise. And of course, we want to see what habit changes make reforms within society. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A society changes because one person sacrifices and changes his habits. In 1955, December 1st, blacks were segregated. Water fountains separated for the blacks. The blacks had to sit in the back of the bus. They had designated schools. They had designated bars, designated restaurants, designated shopping areas, and designated areas where they could live and populate. Until December 1st, 1955, that one person started a fire and changed the habits of every African American and black in the United States of America. For over 200 years, they were segregated. They were seen as slaves. They were seen to be below the white man. They were seen to be below the person who has blue eyes and white skin. But one person who was arrested, being a loved and a cherished person, because she refused to get up out of her seat, even though it was not designated for the white folks. But because the bus was crowded and she was tired and she refused to stand up and refused to abide by these devil-made laws, she is arrested. She is arrested, And because she is loved and cherished, because she was an activist in her community, she went to church, she worked at the hospital, she would donate knits to the hospital, she had so many friends, she was an activist in her community, in her society. It changes the views of how African Americans looked at the injustice that was placed upon them, the segregations that were placed upon them. Unlike other Africans, she made a change. She changed her habit. She was willing to stand up this one time. Every time this queue had come before her, the routine was to sit or to move to the back of the bus and not answer back and give to these devil-made laws. But she changed the routine. And the results were staggering and astonishing. And she was the first person to stand up and say no. She was the first person to stand up and say no. Rosa Parks was well known within the community. So, of course, a friend called a friend called a friend, and all of a sudden, half of the community is standing outside the police station, the precinct, and two members of the community go and bail Rosa Parks out. One of them being a white lawyer, and the second one, a prominent African American within the community. E.D. Nixon and lawyer Clifford Durr. They go bail out Rosa Parks. They take her home. They tell her, you have just changed the habits of every African American. And now we want to make change within our community. It's time to progress. It's time to see victory. It's time to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Soon, within hours, a movement started. A movement for the blacks to gain their rights. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It started a chain reaction. Even people like Martin Luther King, this name that you hear every day, he was scared to stand up. Read the history of the blacks. He was scared. Until Rosa Parks stood. She stood and she turned on the fire within his soul. She turned the flame within his soul. And now he has been given birth. This person who leads and changes his habits of being oppressed and quiet all the time, and to someone who's willing to lead a community, to make changes for his people, to see freedom for his people. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He tells us you have the same habits. You have the same habits. We Shia, we the followers of Ahlul Bayt, we have the same habits. That's why we always lose. That's why we're always last. Why are you so weak? Because we were very similar to the African Americans and the blacks before they changed their habits. He says, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا غُزِيَ قَوْمٌ قَبْ فِي عُقْرِ دَارِهِمْ حَتَّى ذُلُّوا. These are the words of your master, the person that you hear his name as soon as your mother gives birth to you. Listen to him, what he says. فَقَالَ فَتَوَاكَلْتُمْ وَتَغَاثَلْتُمْ حَتَّى شَنَّتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَارَاتِ. You know what Amir al-Mu'mineen says? That you don't change your habits. You know what your habits are? All the time. You never fight. You never excel. You never want to progress. You never want to move forward. You always wait for the enemy to come stand in your court. And then you defend yourself. He says, of course, when the enemy comes to your city and they barricade your city, you're going to die. You're going to lose. You're going to see shame. You're never going to see victory. And that's amazing how similar it sounds to our time. Look at the rest of the ummah, look at us. Look at them and look at us. We're never in the battlefront. We're always in the back. We're never the first to the summit, to the mountaintop. And moreover, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, you blackball one another. You let each other down. Even if one of you stands up and he says, I will make reform, you tell him, yes, I'm with you. And then you leave him. You leave him. وَتَوَاكَلْتُمْ وَتَخَاذَلْتُمْ حَتَّى شُنَّتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَارَّاتِ. Do you know why you're always weak? The Shias always nag. We're always weak. We're always being hated on. We're always being killed, murdered. Listen to what Amir al-Mu'mineen says in Nahj al-Balagha. He says, because you were always hypocritical to one another. You were never united. You never changed your habits to excel. Of course, that's in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, but it's still occurring till today after 14 centuries, brothers and sisters. Then, Amir al-Mu'mineen says that, yes, you blackball each other. What does this mean? You see one of your congregational members, one of the brothers you see in the community, he tells you anything you need. You just tell me. You tell me, you put my number on speed dial. As soon as you call me, anything that you need. And then when you call him and you tell him, Fulan, I need your help, he starts to stutter, and then suddenly, and for sure, he reaches a poor reception area, and there goes the phone call. Yes, you tell one another that I'm always there for you, and then when you stand up, when you stands up, تَخَاذَلْتُمْ, you blackball each other. You let each other down. And tell me this is not what occurs in our communities. Tell me this is not what happens in our communities. As soon as one person stands, there's 100 things that are labeled on him. This guy follows this guy, he's from this city, he eats funny, he dresses funny, and so many problems are put into place. When he sees him, yes, I will help you, I will be with you. Anything you ask, I'll do anything. And then when it comes to reality, he disappears. Everywhere you go, you see the opposite with them. Everywhere you go, you see them standing together, holding one another. He says that the enemy, your enemies, always standing together. وَشُنَّتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَارَاتِ. They are coming to conquer you every time. And you see this in our lives. Everywhere you go, you see them. They're advertising, there's conferences, there's lectures. They're making da'wah everywhere you go. From the tube station to the streets. Every single Muslim association in every university and college is in their name. You find 100 of them and 2 of us, if not one. And then those 2 are fighting. I follow this guy and I follow this guy. You go to every restaurant, I saw 2, 3 flyers. You go to this place, you see them opening their hands. They're always waging a war against you, and you are so clueless. And then when it comes to reality, that you are being beheaded, because of your faith and your name, then you say, oh, why did this happen? Why did this occur? And of course, we want to see when the Muslims succeeded. When the Shias succeeded. You want to see success within the Shia community? Look at the legacy of Mukhtar alayhi salam. And of course, this is a very controversial issue, but I will destroy this controversy in a second. Mukhtar alayhi salam, may Allah bless his soul. May Allah bless his soul. He brought the Shias together. They came together, and he went step by step. He went to the enemy. He walked into their courts. He didn't wait for them to come and behead him and kill more Shias and kill Zayn al-Abidin. No, he goes and he takes vengeance and seeks the blood of the killers of the son of the daughter of the Prophet. You know what Imam al-Baqir says about Al-Mukhtar alayhi salam? And let me tell you one thing. It wasn't till this unity occurred between him. It wasn't him. He didn't cause a problem. تَخَاذَلْتُمْ. You blackballed him. Someone blackballed him. Someone very close to him. He laid him down. That's why Mukhtar was killed and stood alone on the day of his last battle. Ibrahim, the son of Malik al-Ashtar, had promised him to come to him to save him. But he never showed up. And Mukhtar falls and is killed the same death of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. But look what kind of reforms he made. Look what he accomplished in his life. And for those who think he's a controversial person, he is not. Look what Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, afdal as-salatu was-salam says. He says, لا تسبوا المختار فأنه قد قتل قتلتنا وطالب بثأرنا وزوج أراملنا وقسم فينا المال على الأسرة. Don't curse al-Mukhtar. This man is a genuine man. He's a genuine man. He's a gem. Do you know why? Because he is the one, he's the only one who united to seek vengeance for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And then he married off our widows. How many widows did we have? The ladies that became widows, the children that became orphans. He found them fathers, he helped them, and he gave us wealth when we were at a time that no one was helping us. Mukhtar is a blessed man. But look how he changed the habits of the Shias within moments, within days, within months after the death of Imam Hussein, and he seeks revenge. They all stood together, and we would have been successful if the son of Malik al-Ashtar did not let him down. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam continues in his sermon in Nahj al-Balagha. He says, يَمِيتُ الْقَلْبِ وَيَجْلِبُ الْهَمْ مِنْ اجْتِمَاعِ هَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ عَلَى بَاطِلِهِمْ وَتَفَرُّقُكُمْ عَلَى حَقِّكُمْ. Listen to the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, it makes my heart bleed. It's as if someone is stabbing me in my heart when I see these people. They have all come together and unite for injustice. While you, for your own rights, for your own justice, you are scattered. You stand, everyone wants to carry the thunder himself. You don't want to unite. This makes me bleed from inside. Do you think that was only at the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Let's give you some examples today. Is it this what occurs in our communities? Is it this exactly what our Prophet, peace be upon him, told us? When he says, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi says, يَدُ اللَّهِ مَعَ الجَّمَاعَةِ جَمَاعَةِ وَالشَّيْطَانِ مَعَ مَنْ خَالَفَ الجَّمَاعَةِ يَرْكُضُ. Allah's hand and Allah's power is with those who stand together and unite, the congregations that stand together, and shaitan runs with those who break the congregations and break unity. Yes, shaitan is with them. These people are shaitan themselves. So when you see why our communities, our Shia brothers and sisters are dispersed within a small city, it's because there are some shaitans. There are some shaitans within us. Let's say it. Let's be truthful. Speak the truth even if it means your death. This is what we learned from Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. Yes, in Ramadan I was invited to London, central London. And I had given oath to some of the youth to take them to camp in Cardiff, Wales. One of the elders of the community, well known, he comes to this group of youth and he tells them, why have you invited this guy? This guy's Karbala'i, he's not Najafi. Why don't you invite Najafis? As if this is the biggest problem within us, the Shias. Where I am from, where my forefathers have come from. And these young youth were confused that he's taken us, he's left his family, he's left his wife and kids, and he's come to help us. And this is the biggest problem that you find? And tell me this is not seen today. Tell me this is not seen today. They tell him, Sayyid, we have problems. He's taking us. He's even not taking money. He's doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You should be happy that he's doing this. Bring someone to the plate from your community. And this is exactly what's happened. These people don't realize because shaitan is within them. Listen to the words of Rasulullah. He says, Shaitan runs with these people who break the unity of the Shia. Shaitan runs with them. He is in them. He's in their hearts. They have become his soldiers, while they think they're believers. No, this is not the fact. When our youth in this country, they get caught in trouble, when they are arrested, do you think the newspapers or the news media is going to say a young Karbala'i or a young Baghdadi or a young person from Karachi was arrested, or Tanzania or India? No, they will say a young Muslim man committed this crime. They don't care which city you are from. So don't place these illusions, these diseases and these poisons in the minds of our young brothers and sisters. If you want to carry these poisons, go back to your country. Because you do no good for Muslims to success in this country. And to success and to move forward. When someone is successful in our community, whether he is Khoja, Iraqi, Irani, Pakistani, they don't care which country he is from. He's still considered and labeled only as a Muslim man or a Muslim woman. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His Prophet says, Yadullahi ma'al jama'ah. You want to stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Change your habits in breaking the community. Since day one we've had this habit. Let's come and listen to the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We are all educated. Even if we say the people at the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they lacked education. They weren't doctors, they weren't engineers, they weren't professors. But how about now when most of these people are carrying PhDs and they want people to call them doctors? While they still lack the most simple ingredients of their religion. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi says, Al-jama'atu rahmah wal-firqatu adhab. When you stand together, O Shia, O Muslims, you are under the umbrella of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once you scattered, look what happens to you. Look what happens to you. For 30 years, 5 million Shia are killed in Iraq. Till today, in Afghanistan and Pakistan, people are being killed. In Bahrain, people are being killed. In Bahrain, the only time when you see them become unified and have unity, they win at the time and the story of the pomegranate. They all stood together and they prayed to Sahib Zaman. They were victorious. But now, there's so many political issues and agendas between them. Look what happens to them. Do you think this king would have dared to stand against them if they were all holding hands? 90% of his population, if they stood together, would he even have opened his mouth? But now it's this and this and this guy. Each one of them is carrying their own flag. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal as-salati was-salam says, لا تكونوا أنصاب الفتن وأعلام البدع وألزموا ما عقد عليه حبل الجماعة وَبُنِيَتْ عَلَيْهِ أَرْكَانُ الطَّاعَةِ. Don't be establishments of disorder. Don't think to yourself that I single-handedly will do everything. I want all eyes on me. I want to be in the spotlight. No, don't raise the banners of disorder within the community. This guy is not from our city. This guy is not from our culture. This guy doesn't speak our language. This is the masjid for the Khoja. This is an Iraqi majlis. This is an Irani majlis. This is a Sistani followers congregation. This is a Khoi followers congregation. This is a pro-Iran regime revolution congregation. And no one else is welcome. As if we do not all carry the love of Ahlul Bayt, the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afdal as-salati was-salam. And this shows that we lack the true teachings of Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet, peace be upon them. That none of us are walking on the road. None of us are walking on their path. Because this is what they taught us. And if you can't abide by their teachings, don't claim that you are part of them. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We have been reacting definitely in the wrong manner to every cue that has been proposed to us. We have to change our routines, brothers and sisters. Every time a routine comes, a cue comes, change your routine. The Hilal of Muharram comes, change your routine. Become one congregation. It doesn't matter who is who. If this person is lamentating and you don't believe in lamentation, he's a kafir, you're a kafir. Change the cues, change everything. So we could succeed, brothers and sisters. Come together. Put the thunder together. So the skies will echo the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Rasulullah. And the commandments of Islam will shower upon mankind. But once you want everything for yourself, this leader wants to build his own congregation, his own people, only his views are respected and everyone else is an idiot. This is not right. This is not how we live. This is not how our imams and our Prophet want us to live. إن الله يحب الذين يقاتلون في سبيل الله صفا كأنهم بنيان مرصوص. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who stand together and fight alongside together. Allah says, I love these people. Once you are unified and you are in a single line, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showers you with His blessings. He will shower you with His blessings. If we are a 1-to-3 ratio to the Muslim Ummah now, so were the Muslims that stood on the day of Uhud. وَنَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. They didn't even have swords, but they stood together. They held hands. The Fars, the Arab, the Quraysh, the other clans, the brown, the black, they all stood together and Allah showed them victory. He showed them victory. But as soon as they disunited in the second battle, they lost. And this is exactly why we have been losing. We, the Shia Ummah, this is why we are losing. But listen to the Quran, listen to the Prophet. Allah يحب الذين يقاتلون together في سبيله صفا كأنهم بنيان مرصوص. They are like an indestructible and undestroyable foundation. The pillars of this foundation are indestructible. Let's come together, brothers and sisters. This is the last night of Muharram. The last night, the last 10 days. Tomorrow day, Imam Hussein will be beheaded. He has been for the past 13 centuries. And we are still disunited. Just look what occurred after his death, what Mukhtar achieved after his death. We can achieve this if we unite. We can achieve this. Change the routines. Everything can be changed in life, and people can succeed. People can achieve accomplishments. People can skyrocket instead of skyfall and hit the ground. And unfortunately, for the past 13 centuries, we've been scraping on the floor. We have to change our lives. We have to progress and towards the future. Why is it our Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman coming to us? The same reason that his grandfather did not rise, because he said, I don't have 5 of these people who are willing to do anything for me. 3 out of 300 million. We can't bring together 313. Why? Because we are so disunited. We're so disunited. Tonight, the eve of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, we have to change our lives. We have to change the routines. And I assure you, you will receive the same reward that Mukhtar received. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight, we sit here together and commemorate the death of an infant, brothers and sisters. For the past several nights, he commemorated the death of Abbas alayhi salam. This lion, Ali al-Akbar, Hur, old men. They have seen their life. They have walked on this planet. But tonight, the innocence of a child, 6-month-old baby, tonight we commemorate him. The death of Abdullah al-Rabi'. صاحب العصر والزمان says السلام على عبد الله الرضيع المرمي الصريع المتشحط دما المصعد بدمه إلى السماء المذبوح بالسهم في حجر أبيه. صاحب الزمان alayhi salam says, may Allah, salam and peace be upon Abdullah, the one who was killed with an arrow in the lap and the hands of his own father. Imam Hussein, after the death of all his companions and his household, he is sitting outside his tent. It is time for farewells with the ladies. He's standing alone now, brothers and sisters. He has given his goodbyes to everyone. Oh Zainab, where is my son Ali? She tells him, oh my brother Hussein, he is with his mother Rabab. His mother has been trying to breastfeed him for the past 3 days, but she has no milk. Imam Hussein starts to cry. He says, bring my son so I could get him some water. She goes and she brings him. Sukaina runs with Zainab. All the children run with Zainab. They want to see if Imam Hussein gets some water for Ali. Abdullah al-Rabi', he will probably bring them some water as well. Imam Hussein carries his son. He walks towards the enemy. He tells them, oh people, if I have harmed you, if I have done something wrong towards you, what is the sin and the mistake of this 6-month-old child? He is dying, oh Muslims, give him some water to drink. As that moment, the enemy troops started to cry and weep. Umar ibn Sa'd looks the chaos and sees the chaos in his army. He calls Harmala. He tells him, oh Harmala, اقطع نزاع القوم. Harmala takes out a poisoned arrow and he shoots Abdullah in his neck. Abdullah starts to flap his hands like a dead bird. The blood of this infant goes and splatters on the face of Hussein. Imam Hussein alayhi salam takes the blood of Abdullah and throws it to the skies. قال الحسين عليك الدنيا العفا. He takes his child, his murdered child, back to the tent. He has placed this child under his cloak. Sukaina runs to him, oh my father, did you give my brother some water? Oh father, give me some water. Imam Hussein starts to cry, and he takes his son. He gives him to his sister. Oh, Sukaina, take your son, your brother that they have killed. The children run towards Imam Hussein. They think he has brought some water. Rabab runs to Imam Hussein, seeing if her child was given water. Zainab runs to Imam Hussein, and they all surround him. They open their eyes and they see the arrow has pierced from Ali's neck from one side to the other. Rabab takes her son. She goes back in the tent. She tells him, oh, my son, I could not breastfeed you, but the enemy has fed you with the arrow. Imam Hussein goes behind the tent and buries Ali. Now it is time for farewells. He tells Zainab, I wish my brother Abbas was here. Oh Zainab, why? Because the hardest thing in this day was not seeing Abbas fall. It wasn't seeing Al-Qasim fall. It wasn't seeing Ali fall. It is knowing that I leave you, the daughters of Rasulullah, without a protector. Who will bring me my horse? Who will mount me my horse? Zainab goes and brings him his horse. Imam Hussein sits on his horse. He is giving his farewells. Where is Sukaina? Oh, my sister Zainab. She tells him, oh, my brother Hussein, she doesn't want to come out to see you. She says, how can I witness my father walk to his own death? Imam Hussein loves Sukaina. He comes down from his horse. He walks into the tent. He sees Sukaina crying. He goes to her. He tells her, oh, my daughter, what is wrong? She says, oh, my father, place your hands on my head. Why, my daughter? Because I heard that our grandfather Rasulullah used to place his hands on the heads of the orphans. Imam Hussein holds his daughter and weeps. Then he stands and goes back outside the tent. Umar ibn Sa'ad orders the arrows to be showered upon him. Imam Hussein, like an angry lion, he sits on his horse and he charges towards the enemies. But as soon as he is going further and further, he hears a small voice, a vinny voice, oh Hussein. He turns around. It looks as if it's his mother, Fatima. He turns back, he runs back to the tent. Who is it? It is me, your sister Zainab. What do you want, my sister? She tells him, oh, my brother, come down from your horse. I have to give you something. I promised, mother, I would give it to you on this day. What is it? Oh, Zainab. She says, when my mother was about to pass, she told me, oh Zainab, when you stand with your brother Hussein on the day of Ashura, when you see him standing all alone, when you see him marching towards the enemy, I want you to kiss his chest, and I want you to kiss him from his veins. Imam Hussein starts to cry. Zainab starts to cry. Zainab turns to Medina and she says, oh, my mother, I have fulfilled your wish. Now Imam Hussein goes back. He fights courageously until he is tired. They have showered him with arrows. Historians say that so many arrows had hit him that he looked like a porcupine. Imam Hussein stands to rest. One of the enemies carries a big rock. He throws it at the forehead of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein grabs his shirt to remove the blood. Harmala shoots him with a 3-headed arrow in his heart. أين المنادي وإماما وحسينا. Imam Hussein falls to the ground. They surround him. Historians said that Imam al-Hassan had a small son by the name of Abdullah. He sees his uncle in that position. He runs. His auntie Zainab runs after him. No, Abdullah, do not go. You're only 10 years old. He sees a sword before him. He carries the sword and runs toward his uncle. Someone is about to hit Imam Hussein on his head. He jumps before that man's sword. It hits his shoulder. His shoulder falls. He falls on the chest of his uncle. Oh, my uncle, I won't leave you. Imam Hussein hugs him. Imam Hussein hugs him until this young 10-year-old boy departs this world. Imam Hussein's horse, it is wiping the blood of Imam Hussein on its skin. It runs towards the camp of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is no longer on his horse. The ladies see the horse. Imam al-Zaman tells us what occurred. فلما نظرنا النساء إلى جواده مخزيا والسرج عليه ملويا خرجنا من الخدور على الخدود لاطمات وبالعويل داعيات إلى مصرع الحسين مبادرات. They ran towards Imam Hussein. They saw Shimr sitting on his chest. أين المنادي وحسين.